Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
massive part of their attacks on the public service.
Mm,
It's just attacking the data collection, the
mm.
research, and even as far as defunding archives and Z and things like that, these libraries of information. I definitely don't think we've pushed back enough on it.
How do we do that? How do we push back other than one-term government, which we hear all the time? What do we actually do to push back?
Well, we can't let the lies go. We have to consistently and repeatedly point back. The first time we get sick of saying it, right? Because we hear it all the time, and we get sick of saying that's just not true. That's just not true. That's not true. The 10th time we say it is the first time somebody hears it in the public, right?
Right.
And we have a job to do in public voice. We also have a job to do to elevate public voices, to elevate the voices of people in communities that aren't heard, right? Workers who are losing their jobs in Tokoroa, right? They need their voices heard about what's actually going to happen to their town.
Yeah.
Right. Workers who are impacted by the closure of Smithfields, right? Meatworks, right? Need their voices heard whilst this government sanctions live meat exports, right?
Yep.
We
And
need
what
to
a
be
bullshit!
lifting those voices.
What a bullshit artist Winston Peters was. Going down to Tokoroa, who organised? Who got the community involved? Kamatha Paul, actually, because that's her Hokainga. That's where she's from. And what did he say? Oh, I'm talking to the ambassador. We're going to fix this. But when the factory closed down 6 weeks later, he was nowhere to be seen. Nowhere to be seen.
And to me, we have a job of work, Pat, to consistently and repeatedly go out there. Every time the government puts out a number that's dodgy, to say that's not true. Every time they put out a line saying this doesn't work, show me how, right? Every time they say this policy will work, really, right? That's our job, as I say, in the 500 and odd days until the next election. That's what we have to do.
Yeah, and the issue is that our media is not doing that work, right? And it leaves it to people like Pat and Chewy to do that on BHN, and people like us who are just like, severely underfunded, just doing it from our bedroom. And one thing, and if I can say this while I've got Craig here, is that the unions, I think, could do a slightly better job of their media, like advertising protests more, having people on the ground to film the protests, to record them, having good audio, having good visuals. That can go a really long way. And unions are one of the, remaining bastions of power in this country in terms of the left. So, there's a little bit of power, there's a little bit of money there. I think that unions could do well to invest in communicating their message.
Yeah.
One of the things about the trade union
I agree. I agree, and yeah, carry on, Craig.
Go on, and one of the things we
I despair about that. I despair about the outlook for our media. I think we've been collectively silent, and I'm going to take some personal responsibility about this. I'll write something in the New Zealand Herald over the next couple of weeks. It might be the last column that I ever get published, if they do publish it. But the alt-right takeover of NZME needs to be called out. It's bloody dangerous. And if this very litigious billionaire or whatever he is from Canada can come over and knock over NZME, TVNZ, Radio New Zealand, spin-off, newsroom, all become very vulnerable. So, I'm really concerned about this. I think this is actually one of the greatest fundamental challenges to democracy I've seen in my lifetime.
What I would say, Sama, in response to your point about the trade union movement, is that I don't think anyone could accuse us at the last election of being on the fence about what about where the direction of this country. I don't think anyone could accuse us of not putting up posters around the country demonstrating where we stood on the various issues. You did right. We could, there's always better ways of communicating, right? And hopefully we can communicate ever better, right? With workers, with communities. I'm as keen to, right, as anybody else, right? Because I spend my life borrowing other people's megaphones to tell the world that this is dumb, or this number doesn't add up, right? I think we all have a job of work to do. But the one thing I would say is that you said we have a bit of money. Never underestimate the poverty of organizations on the left, particularly the trade union movement. I think I think between us, right? We wouldn't have 1/10 of the advertising budget of just ACT, right?
But
so we
hey,
have
Craig,
to use our
Craig,
voice differently.
You know what we do have? I tell you what we do have. We have the community.
Yeah,
We
that's
have the
true.
audience. Like,
Yes.
honestly, we do. Like
Yeah.
this is the time to go to people watching now. This is where you get involved.
Yeah.
Because when you share Shane's posting on NZ Herald, when you share a BHN clip, when you share an Aotearoa Liberation League clip, that's your part in getting out there.
Yeah.
We've built this BHN thing over 3 years. I've worked for News Talk ZB. I've done that, right? I've never seen community like I've seen around these left-focused things.
You've done a great job, Pat and Chewy. Great job.
Thanks. I wasn't looking for the pat on the back, but thank you.
No, but you deserve it.
I was going to save this till the end of the show, but I just feel like it's kind of appropriate now because people are watching right now, and there's 600 people watching. We want to keep doing this, not just we as in BHM, but we as in the ecosystem on the left. So here's some breaking news for your whānau. Craig said he likes to borrow other people's megaphones and put stuff out there. Well, on the BHN DOC studio platform, we are soon to be launching Craig Renney's podcast. It's called Locked Out with Craig Renney. So Craig Renney will not only be borrowing other people's megaphones, but Craig Renney will have his own megaphone. And in April, that's the target, Craig? Sometime in April.
That's right.
If you're watching this on YouTube, it'll be on YouTube. It'll be on all the platforms as well. Craig Renney, Locked Out podcast will be launching. Do you want to say anything to that, Craig, before we move on to our last topic?
Just very briefly. So my executive director is currently dressing the studio downstairs, which is the most important thing, apparently. But I'm really keen to hear from listeners, really keen to hear from the public. What are the numbers that they want investigating? What are the numbers that they hear that they go, what? Right? When the government says something, right? And you go, does that make any sense? Send me an email, right? We'll work it out, right? Our job is, and hopefully what this podcast will be doing is weekly, is going out there and saying, well, hang on a second, we've heard this. Does it stand up to any scrutiny? And if it doesn't, why not?
Yeah.
And if it doesn't go up to stand up to scrutiny, who's pushing what line and why? And it'll also look at the numbers that are coming up, be they unemployment numbers, GDP numbers, poverty numbers, any other numbers. And we can say, what does good look like before the government gets its chance to get its first lines in? So you can be prepared when you hear what those numbers are, and you can be prepared for actually, that's not a good number, or this is what this means, and this is who's winning and who's losing. So that's the task. That's what we'll be trying to do on a weekly basis. It won't just be me. We'll be trying to bring in experts every week to tell people what's really in the numbers, and trying to fulfill that job of putting on a different voice, not just critical of the government, but just critical of, why is that there and how does that work?
And let me say, there is one other podcast that we have confirmed and we're working on in the background, potentially two. So we're going to add to the ecosystem of the left and what they're saying, completely independent of what me and Chewy do. If you watch me and Chewy, their own product, their own content, getting out there and sharing their knowledge. Excellent. So there you go. We broke that even earlier, Craig.
Awesome.